Good day, my name is Maria Angelica Bontag. Together with my group mates, Miss Josela Bitonio, Miss Mayan Bugnao, and Miss Pritchie Kalugugan. We are Group 2 and we were going to discuss about the intellectual revolutions. So, in intellectual revolution is not only focusing on the geocentric system but also with the heliocentric. So, in order to know of what was that two was all about, so we need to start. So, in the 16th century, Nicholas Copernicus was a Polish astronomer and a mathematician known as a father of astronomy. So, that person, Nicholas Copernicus, challenged the the polemic model, also called as geocentric model or the geocentric system. So what is geocentric or what is polemic model? Polemic model is that it is a mathematical model of the universe formulated by the Alexandrian astronomer and a mathematician Ptolemy. Um, the Ptolemaic system is a geocentric cosmology that starts assuming that the Earth is stationary at the center of the universe. So it believes this model believes that the Earth is stationary and the Earth is the center of the universe. But Nicholas Copernicus introduced a new concept which called a heliocentrism. Heliocentrism is the astronomical model in which the Earth and the planets revolve around the Sun at the center of the universe. So historically, heliocentrism was opposed to geocentrism, which placed the Earth as is at the center. So it's just like this. The polemic method believes that the Earth is the center of the universe, but what Nicholas Copernicus introduced was believed that the sun is the center of the universe. So historically, it is believed that heliocentrism was opposed to geocentrism, as what you have heard to me earlier. So again, the heliocentrism is suggested that the center of the solar system is not the Earth, but actually the Sun. But this idea of Nicholas Copernicus was rejected at first by the public, especially the church, because as what the Holy Scriptures state, that the earth is the center of the universe and not the sun itself. And they also thought that the earth was created first before all other things. That's why they so much believe to the geocentric model, because the geocentric model believes that the earth is the center of the universe. And the heliocentric is really opposed to what geocentric believes for. And because of that, Nicholas Copernicus was persecuted as a heretic because its teaching were against what was widely accepted by the religion. So, after some time, after the time had passed, the the other astronomers realized that the Copernican model, that the Copernican model simplified the orbits of the for the planets, and it also answered the issues that could not be explained using the geocentric model, the geocentric system. So this theory, heliocentrism, was eventually accepted by the people in a period which was called the birth of modern technology. The birth of modern astronomy. So the birth of modern astronomy, this was the time where all the astronomers were came out. All the astronomers came out and was considered also as the beginning of everything. So the birth of modern astronomer. astronomy rather, was this era began of what was known as scientific revolution, which lead in changing of society's views and beliefs. So, in this chapter, the development during the intellectual revolution showed how much the how society was transformed by the science and technology. So this chapter tries to establish the interplay between the science and technology and society, which in strengthening further the band.
Good day! For today's video, I'm going to discuss the Copernican Revolution. So, let's start. Copernican Revolution. Copernican revolution in astronomy was a paradigm shift from the view that the sun revolves around the stationary center of the universe, the Earth, to the view that the Earth is one of several planets revolving around the sun. In the early times, people questioned what created days and nights. They've become curious, which lead them to want to know and to understand what heavenly bodies like stars, moon, and planets are. With the help of the telescope, people has chance to take a peek at the outer space. But more importantly, it also intrigued them to know what was actually out there. Many Greek philosophers wrote about planets and agreed that the planets, as well as the sun and the moon, move in circular motion, and these movements created day and nights. A famous philosopher and astronomer, Claudius Ptolemy, stated that the planet as well as the sun and the moon move in a circular motion around the earth. With the revolution of sun and moon in a circular motion around the earth explained the existence of days and nights. He believed that the earth was at the center, a concept known as geocentrism. Geocentrism refers to a cosmological and planetary theory in which the Earth occupies the central position of the world system. Ptolemy's geocentric model was widely accepted by the people and was one of the greatest discoveries of that time. In the 16th century, Nicholas Copernicus, a Polish mathematician and astronomer, challenged the Ptolemaic. He introduced a new concept known as heliocentrism, which suggested that the center of the solar system was not the Earth, but actually the Sun. The idea was first rejected by the public. It appealed mainly since the religious belief had taught them that the earth was created first before all other things. Copernicus has been persecuted as a heretic because his teachings were against what was widely accepted by religion. But after some time, astronomers realized that the Copernican model simplified the orbits for planets. It also answered issues that could not be explained using the geocentric model. Other works that supported this model started to emerge as well. It was eventually accepted by the people in a period which called the birth of modern astronomy. This era began what was known as the scientific revolution, which resulted in the transformation of society's thoughts and beliefs. That's all for Copernican revolution. Thank you.
Good day, I'm Perche Kalapugan. So as I mentioned, the first thing I'm going to talk about Freudian revolution. As you can see in this picture, this man is behind this revolution named Sigmund Freud. Now let's know more about the details about Sigmund Freud. He has existed in 1856 up to 1939, and he was the founding father of psychoanalysis, a method for treating mental illness, and also a theory which explains human behavior. According to Freud, he believes that in our childhood have great influence in our adulthood, shaping our personality. So next slide is May 6, 1856. So, Sigmund Freud was born in Freiburgstown, Czech Republic. Next is 1881. He graduated from Medical Faculty, University of Vienna. Next, 1896, Sigmund Freud was officially recognized. 1900, he released Interpretation of Dreams. And lastly, in September 23, 1939, Freud passed away in Hampstead House. Next slide, overview of psychoanalysis. So, the overview of psychoanalysis, it was developed by Sigmund Freud and was the first form of psychotherapy. It was the dominant therapeutic technique in the early 20th century, but it has since won significantly in popularity. The next slide is the view of human nature. First is the deterministic, which means that position associated particularly with Sigmund Freud that the mental psych events do not occur by chance but always have an underlying cause that can be uncovered by analysis. Perhaps the single most representative concepts of psychoanalysis is that of psychological determinism. By this mean a fundamental belief that human behavior, consciousness, and experience are determined or explainable. Next, in number 2 is human as energy system. Freud believed that people continuously generate psych energy, but only a certain amount is available for use at any point in time. This psych energy is then used by the three components of personality: the ID, the ego, and the superego. Next slide, level of mental life. Freud delineated the mind in distinct levels, each with their own roles and function. The three levels of mind are: number 1 is unconscious. Unconscious is a reservoir of feelings, thoughts, urges, and memories that are outside of our conscious awareness. The unconscious contains contents that are unacceptable or unpleasant, such as feelings of pain, anxiety, or conflicts. Number 2, preconscious. Preconscious consists of anything that could potentially be brought into the conscious mind. And number 3, conscious. So conscious contains all of the thoughts, memories, feelings, and wishes of which we are aware at any given moment. This is the aspect of our mental processing that we can think and talk about rationally. And this is also includes our memory, which is not always part of consciousness, but it can be retrieved easily and brought into awareness. And next slide is structure of personality. Number 1 is the ID. ID means instinct. So the ID is a part of the unconscious that contains all the urges and impulses, including what is called the libido, a kind of generalized sexual energy that is used for everything from survival instincts to appreciation of art. And number 2, the ego. Ego means reality. So the ego is the part of the ID which has been modified by the direct influence of the external world. The ego is the only part of the conscious personality. It's what the person is aware of when they think about themselves and is what they usually try to project towards others. And lastly, the superego. Superego means morality. The superego function is to control the ID's impulses, especially those which society forbids, such as sex and aggression. It also has the function of persuading the ego to turn to moralistic goals rather than simply realistic ones to strive for perfection. So next slide is the example of ID, ego, and superego. So the example of ID is I want to eat chocolate. And in ego is eat a small bar of chocolate. And last, in superego, is I am on a super diet. That's the example of ID, ego, and superego. So, I think you've now got a good understanding of psychoanalysis. The next part of Freud Revolution will be discussed by Miss Maria Angelica Buntag. Thank you.
The Freudian's revolution is focusing not only on the psychology but also the psychoanalysis. So you already know about the psychology because that was Fretch's discussing to you earlier. So it's my time now to discuss about what is psychoanalysis. So psychoanalysis is the study that explains human behavior. So psychoanalysis is based on Freud's theory that people can experience catharsis and gain insight into their state of mind by bringing the content of the unconscious into conscious awareness. Through this process, a person can relieve from psychological distress. So psychoanalysis refers to both a theory and a type of therapy based on the belief that all people possess unconscious thoughts, feelings, desires, and memories. According to the American Psychoanalytic Association or APA, a psychoanalysis can help people understand themselves by exploring their unrecognized impulses hidden in the unconscious. The psychoanalysis may also suggest the following. A person's behavior is influenced by their unconscious drives. Emotional and psychological problems such as depression and anxiety are often rooted in conflicts between conscious and unconscious mind. Personality development is heavily influenced by the events of early childhood. Freud suggested that personality was largely set in stone by the age of 5. People use defense mechanisms to protect themselves from information contained in unconscious. So skilled analysts can help a person bring certain aspects of their unconscious mind into their conscious awareness by using psychoanalytic strategies such as dream analysis and free association. So many of Freud's observations and theories were based on clinical cases and case studies. This made his findings difficult to generalize to the larger population. Still, Freud's theories changed on how we think about the human mind and behavior and left a lasting mark on psychology and culture. So, to discuss further about the next topic, I'll give you to Josie.
The Darwinian Revolution is generally taken to be one of the key events in the history of Western science in the recent years. However, the very notion of a scientific revolution has come under attack in the specific case of Charles Darwin and his origins of species. Good day, my name is Jocelyn J. Bitanio, and today I'm going to tackle about the Darwinian Revolution. There are serious questions about the nature of the change, and yes, there was such. And specifically, Darwinian input this article considering these questions. First, was there a Darwinian revolution? Was there a revolution at all? What was the specific contribution of Charles Darwin? And what was the conceptual nature of what occurred on and around the publication of The Origin? Yes, there were a major change both scientifically and in a broader metaphysical sense that Charles Darwin was the major player in the change. Although, one must qualify the nature and the extent of the change. Looking particularly at things in a broader historical context than just an immediate event, and that the revolution was complex, and we need the insights of rather different philosophies of scientific change to capture the whole phenomenon. In some aspects, indeed, the process of analysis is still ongoing and unresolved. Before going deeper to the topic, let me introduce Charles Darwin first. Charles Darwin was born in February 12, 1809 in England, a British naturalist that explained the evidence on how evolution might have occurred by natural selection. He studied at the University of Cambridge and was invited as a naturalist to a great expedition. He boarded the HMS Beagle and spent almost 5 years traveling several continents. And lastly, he was famous from his book On the Origin of Species, published in 1859. And now, let's go to the theory of evolution. Darwin's theory of evolution entails the following fundamental ideas. Darwin's original contributions were mechanism of natural selection and obvious amount of evidence for evolutionary change from many sources. He also provided thoughtful explanations of the consequences of evolution for our understanding of the history of life and modern of biological diversity. The theory of evolution by natural selection first formulated in Darwin's book On the Origin of Species in 1859. It is the process by which organisms change over time as a result of change and also as a result of changes in heritable physical or behavioral traits. Changes that allow an organism to better adapt to its environment and also will help it survive and have more offspring. There are three main ideas of Darwin's theory of evolution. First, species or population of interbreeding organisms change over time and space. The representative of species living today differ from those that lived in the recent past, and populations in different geographic regions today differ slightly in form of behavior. These differences extend into the fossil record, which provide the support for this claim. Second, all organisms share common ancestors with other organisms. Over time, populations may divide into different species which share a common ancestral population, far enough back in time. Any pair of organisms share common ancestors. For example, humans shared a common ancestor with chimpanzees about 8 million years ago, with whales about 16 years ago, and with kangaroos over 100 billion years ago. Shared ancestry explains the similarities of organisms that are classified together. Their similarities reflect inheritance traits from a common ancestor. Evolutionary change is gradual and slow in Darwin's view. This claim was supported by the long episodes of gradual change in organisms in the fossil record and the fact that no naturalist had observed the sudden change in appearance of a new species in Darwin's time. Since then, biologists and paleontologists have documented a broad spectrum of slow to rapid rates of evolutionary change with lineage. Darwin's process of natural selection has four components. First component is variation. Organisms within populations exhibit individual variation in appearance and behavior. These variations may involve body size, hair color, facial markings, voice properties, or number of offspring. On the other hand, some traits show little to no variation among individuals. For example, the number of eyes in vertebrates. The second component is inheritance. Some traits are consistently passed on from parent to offspring. The second component is inheritance. Some traits are consistently passed on from parent to offspring. Such traits are heritable, whereas some traits are strongly influenced by environment in all conditions and show weak heritability. The third component is the high rate of population growth. Most populations have more offspring each year than local resources can support, leading to the struggle of resources. Each generation experiences substantial mortality. The fourth and last component is the differential survival and reproduction. Individuals possessing traits well suited for the struggle for the local resources will contribute more offspring to the next generation. Evolution by natural selection is one of the best substantiated theories in the history of science, supported by the evidence from a wide variety of scientific disciplines, including paleontology, geology, genetic, and developmental biology. The theory has two main points, and it can be described as descent with modification. The theory is sometimes described as survival of the fetus, but that can be misleading. It refers not to an organism's strength or athletic ability, for rather the ability to survive and reproduce. Natural selection also is capable of much more given enough time and enough accumulated changes. Natural selection can create entirely new species known as microevolution. It can turn dinosaurs into birds, amphibious mammals into whales, and the ancestor of apes into humans. Darwin also described a form of natural selection that depends on the organism's success at attracting a mate. This process known as sexual selection. The physical and behavioral changes that make natural selection possible happen at the level of DNA and genes. Such changes are called mutations. Mutations are basically the raw materials on which evolution acts. Mutations can be caused by random errors in DNA replication or repair, or by a chemical or radiation damage. Most time, mutations are either harmful or neutral, but the rare instances, mutations might prove beneficial to the organisms. In this way, natural selection guides in the evolutionary process, preserving and adding up beneficial mutations and rejecting the bad ones. So I guess that's all for Darwinian's revolution. Thank you.